Hi everybody, and thanks for joining me this week on the painting channel. I'm going to be doing another watercolor for you this week and sort of jumping on the bandwagon of last week's success with the sunburst. Then I'm going to do another landscape for you, more cloud, more trees, more fields, a couple of houses in this one. Let's dive straight in and see how we get on. So, not unlike last week's drawing, this landscape is a very simple sketch to make because it is a few components. It is a field in the bottom, as last week's was, a range of hills, and there's, I suppose, the most difficult part of these little farm buildings, getting them about right in terms of size and the amount and their position. And I think I actually added a couple bits to it to make it a little bit more interesting. But the trees will come down in the hill. They will disappear further and further away, but go behind those buildings. And as you'll see during the painting, they will isolate that. The thing is not to make a pattern that seems to go around and match the shape of the buildings. Try and make them more random. There, I went wrong. I did it myself. So I had to go in and change that look and try and make it as random as I can. But I'm not putting anything in the sky. There's no need to. The sky will paint itself as last week's did. This one will be no different. So I'm now getting ready to create and start the painting. I'm using a nice, fairly large, probably a number 6 or 7 round, and I'm using cerulean blue and cobalt blue as a sky mix. I'm adding a little bit more cobalt into that, as you saw, and now I'm adding some lighter values of cerulean blue as I come down near the horizon line. But I'm going to stop there because there's going to be a lot of white cloud, and I'm trying to soften all these edges. You'll see me softening all these edges, not each and every one, because some of them want to remain hard, but because the paper's a good quality paper, I do have the ability to keep working those edges with the dampness of the brush. Clean water, squeeze it through my fingers so that it just remains damp and not sloshing with wet. And then I can lift these edges, tease the colours, tease the paint. And by doing that and lifting a bit of colour, even randomly right in the middle of the blue there, I can actually suggest the wispiness of cloud that are being blown away from the big massive cloud. Even when you come to do these more faint clouds in skies, it's a great way of doing it, just lifting off the blue to suggest these whiter forms that are not definite shapes. And I'm going back in and reinforcing one or two, because where it is damp, of course, the paint will want to run back. So you've got to be aware of that and just be prepared to go back in and lift it again. But I'm pretty much doing all of this painting, apart from the initial colour, with no colour on my brush at all. I'm using dampness. I'm using clean water and dampness, and I'm working all over the area of all the edges. I'm looking at bits that want redoing, applying some dampness to lift off the colour. Maybe I see an area that's still a little bit of a hard edge and I want to do that. And there are a number of those through this painting that I actually missed and had to work a little harder on to get them to fall into line as I want them. Now I'm using a little bit of magenta and a lot of indigo together to create this rainier cloud at the top. And I wanted it pretty heavy, but I wanted it to be heavy at the top. So what I did is I actually added some more pigment in a moment or two and tipped the painting away from me so that that darker pigment could actually run backwards towards the top of the painting. Once it had done that, I then allowed it to settle back down and come forward. Now I'm adding that extra dark in and allowing it to run towards the paper. What I don't want is a line of dark to dry there, so I'm literally using a paper tissue to take off any excess pigment that may be resting against the border tape, so it will now settle down. Once more, I'm looking at all the edges again. I'm softening. Even though I was doing it on the blue, I'm now doing it on this darker area, and I'm using the watered down pigments that the brush picks up to lay down on other white areas to suggest subtle tonal changes within the cloud itself and the structure. And by doing that, you create all those wonderful different shapes and forms that clouds are just so beautiful to show us. You know, the dark bits, the light bits, the heavier bits, it's just fantastic the way light and the shapes within the clouds and all the different many facets that as we see it, I just can't explain. It's just a wonderful thing to do. And to try and recreate that in paint is awesome. It's magical. And I never tire of trying. I don't always bring it off, but I never tire of trying to create clouds. They are just wonderful things. I remember many years ago, my wife telling me that I was such a Philistine because she would say, look at that lovely winter cloud. And I would look up and I say, what, that grey stuff up there? Well, you're joking, aren't you? And I was so out of order. And over the years, I've come to fully appreciate clouds. Now I walk around with almost a permanent crook in the neck because clouds are wonderful and they just inspire. I don't know what it is about them, but they just inspire. And I just go walking around now with my head raised in the air, looking at them as they change and create so many wonderful scenes in front of us. And let's face it, you know, without a good cloud in the sky, sometimes that sky can be pretty boring. Nice to be able to do and render a big flat blue wash that comes down in its lovely gradients, but it really is something else to create a splendid cloud or rain cloud or something else within that blue area of sky. Now I'm adding a little bit more blues and a little bit more indigos to create a little bit more weight in the bottom part of this cloud. As it's come down, I took one side on the far right the way down into the tree line, because that doesn't matter, because the color of the trees are going to be that much darker than the sky, so it really isn't a problem. All I'm really doing now is trying to tweak all these darks, all these little subtle changes in tonal shifts with the dark, the warms, the cools, the blue violets, the redder violets, so that you get a wonderful array of different elements within this cloud. And it just smacks of its enormity. And it's vast. I mean, it dwarfs everything. I don't know how high technically it would be, but it's pretty awesome. Anyway, I'm sort of gabbing on about clouds. I should be talking about this painting. I'm just running in a little bit of color here and there where it just needed a bit more work, and I'm tapping away. It's a bit of a repair. That water sort of flooded almost uphill. I think it may have been when I tipped the painting in the opposite way, that the water there was a little wetter and just managed to flood forward. The sky's done. Now I'm using Aureolin and a little bit of cobalt mixed to get this really fresh limey green into the first wave of colour on the foreground field and the hills. I added a little bit of raw sienna just to give me a different variation in the foreground field. That will dry up and I will do more with that. With the dark tree line, which I'm putting in now, I used a real dark indigo with a bit of orange, and I put in some red and a little bit of phthalo green, but I actually couldn't get the color I wanted to start with, and by adding a bit of Indian yellow to it, it turned it to the green that I've been looking for. So it was a bit of a trial and error, but I got there in the end. I'm being really careful around these buildings because I'm still using the same large round brush to paint this picture with, so I'm really carefully coming in and sort of coming right up to the edges, preserving the white of the paper so that I can go back in and paint those farm buildings correctly and not lose them. And now you can start judging the scale. Those buildings, now you can see them as white shapes against the hillside, and you can see the shape of the hill. They actually now create a wonderful depth of perspective from the field going towards them, the hillside, and that massive cloud. And that's what I really like about these simple little landscape pictures, that you know, just one little element. It could be a person, it could be a building, or something simple to add into the painting to give it a little bit of scale. But in doing that, you set up a new dynamic and create this wonderful sense of perspective and great space within the work that you're creating. I think you'll agree with the farm buildings and the trees behind and the cloud. You get this sense of open space. What I've also been doing is adding in a bit of Indian yellow and cobalt mixes into those tree lines to suggest another green or a lighter shade of green, so that it's not one solid color of tree. And I think it works. And also I did the same thing on this far left hand side along the foothill, and suggested areas that are either, I don't know, thicker growth and trees and shrubs and bushes, whatever. But I wanted to change the area on the left to support the rest of the picture. Here I actually missed a little bit of a track that went up into and around that top line of trees. So I had to change that dark shape. And I also softened the edges. Now I speak about the edges of things a lot, but I do more about and why in my full-length Patreon version of this painting, where I discuss why we use these edges and what they're all for. Now I'm adding in a bit more of a tonal shift in color in the hillside to give me the same greens and some of that limey green coming through, but to suggest that there is different and is separate from the field in the foreground. It is just a shade or two adjustment in that green just to suggest it. And now I'm really getting ready to come to the end of this painting, because all I've got to do now is to put in the houses. But before I did that, I wanted to put these directional lines in across the field. They're not in the real photo, but they are a great divisive way of suggesting the dynamic of distance and perspective again. The buildings, now these were fairly simple. It's the last part really I had to do, but all it was warms and cools, violets and reds, and softly put in. Merely indications, little taps of color to suggest windows and doors. Your brain will look at this and join all the dots and make buildings for me. But the detail really doesn't have to be that great, as you can see. Now I'm sort of just finishing off, a little bit darker here, reinforcing the windows and all around it, but it's done. And it's been a great experience painting this little painting. I've had fun with it. And the last thing I really wanted to do was to put a sky, a shadow across the foreground to add another bit of interest, break up the big field and add a final dynamic. And for that I used a violet mix, just coming right the way across the foreground, and we're done. It's finished, and I hope you've enjoyed it, because I have. It's been a lot of fun. I have no idea how long this video is, and I keep making Patreon ones one, full-length one, and YouTube another. The reason I do that is because all the statistics out there tell me that people like only short videos on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, whether it's the short version this week or the long version, in the comments below, just let me know what you really like. Do you like longer full-length videos on YouTube to sit and watch? Or do you like the time-lapse ones that I have been putting out and saving the full ones for my Patreon page? So it would be interesting to gather other people's thoughts, because all I do is listen to what other people are doing and try and extrapolate what I think is good information, and then proceed or move forward with that in my own efforts on my painting channel. It would be nice to know what you really think about that. Long ones or short ones, full length or time lapse. Let me know in the comments below, and let me know. All right, on that subject, before I go any further, I just wanted to say a massive, massive, massive thank you to all my latest subscribers. Now, we only started, or at least I only started this channel back at the end of June last year. Beginning of July was my first proper tutorial. I had a YouTube channel for several years, done nothing with it. But I really got serious at the end of June, beginning of July. And we started off with just about 70, 80 subscribers back then. And I have just hit 750 today, just over that now. And I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for the massive growth in such a short space of time and your support to my efforts on my painting channel. I know in the light of many people's painting channels out there, I am a mere beginner, a mere baby when it comes to channel size, and I have an awful long way to go yet before I reach the dizzy heights of several tens of thousands of subscribers. But every week I am adding to what I'm doing here for you to enjoy and for you to watch either here or on my Patreon page and get something from it. So if you are watching this and you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please consider doing that, because it does tell me that people are watching it. It also helps the channel grow within YouTube or the YouTube community. So that really does help me as a content creator to have people like the channel. It shares it to other people and also add comments. But above all, please subscribe. And with that in mind, I hope for saying soon that I'll reach that magic 1,000 subscribers. And every day I keep looking at it and I keep edging a little bit closer, and it's really a remarkable journey so far. And I really am enjoying it. And I'm going to ramble on in a minute. So this could be a quick video. It could be a marathon video, but I just wanted to say that to everybody. Thank you so, so much for all the support that you've given my channel and my painting efforts so far. I'll catch you all next Friday. And again, I don't know what I'm going to be painting, but I'll do something and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And until that time, happy painting yourselves. Keep up the good work. Catch you all soon. Bye-bye.